Welcome to the Artistic Foodies, the show that explores life through the lens of art and food. I'm Abbas Mohamed.
And I'm Irfan Rydhan.
And today we're talking with Shahjehan Khan about Deli Boys, Muslim punk rock, and my personal favorite, Nehari. Shahjehan shares his wide range of experiences, from music to acting to even playing a character in the new Mortal Kombat game. So make sure you listen all the way through.
Shahjehan Khan is a Pakistani-American actor, musician, and media professional from Boston. Shah's first TV appearance was as Len in the HBO series Succession. You can now watch him as Dark Darko's family gangster Ali Shahir on Deli Boys, now available on Hulu, and as Ozzy in the Netflix movie Aftermath. An award-winning narrator and Webby-nominated podcaster with his series King of the World podcast, Shahjehan is also the face of the villainous Quan Chi in Mortal Kombat 1. He co-founded American Desi punk rock legends the Kominas and currently plays with Ravi Shavi, Sonny Singh, and Gods. Shaj has been in long-term recovery from addiction for more than 14 years and is a fierce mental health advocate.
I'm really excited for the end of this episode. I'm not saying that, I want this to end already. I'm excited for the end because right at the end, we're going to be talking about Nehari. And Nehari, to me, if I can get philosophical for a moment,
please do.
Is when I eat Nehari, like really good Nehari, it marvels me that there exist people who don't believe there's a creator of this universe. When I let myself sink into the delicious, spicy unctuousness, how can there be no God? How can there be no God? La ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. And that's how you know that Nehari really be hidden. So I'm excited to talk about that in a little bit. But I just want to say welcome to the show. I'm really
excited. Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
So we met at the Oscars a number of years ago.
That's right. 2021, 22? 22,
yeah.
think. 23? No, 22. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, what is time, right?
I know. Yeah.
And I remember one of the first things we connected on was music. We were just chilling in the hotel lobby. There's electric guitar. And you told the story of Junoon, and there's a very specific song that you told the story of, and you played the song.
Yes.
Let's start with that story, how you got into music. We'll talk about music a little bit, and then we'll jump into Deli Boys.
Sure, man. Yeah, I think the song that I was playing was probably the instrumental off of their first record called Heed, which is actually the song that inspired me to play guitar. But I got into music thanks to my parents. They're not musicians, but they're big fans of music and always had music in the house. My dad, big into both, South Asian classical stuff like Qawwali and things like that, but also Johnny Cash and Chuck Berry. I learned much later in life, actually, that my mother wanted to play guitar when she was in Pakistan, but obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but she had a cousin in the UK who she was really hoping would bring her a guitar back in the day, but she never did. So she actually and I learned this as an adult, not even a few years ago, that me playing guitar is kind of like my mom's vicarious dream for herself, which is so cool. But yeah, so I definitely credit my love of my mom. Was the one who drove me I started with piano, so she drove me to piano lessons, and then when I started to want to play guitar, she was the one who surprised me actually on my Amin with an electric guitar. So that was kind of it was we had the Amin party, and I found out that I saw this present in the corner, and I just knew exactly what it was. And I flipped out. And there's still a photo of me with my like mushroom haircut and like kurta shalwar, just like holding for any guitarists out there, a Squire Strat Pack, which is like this like red guitar, this tiny little amplifier. And that, and my dad, a few years before that, had bought me a $12 acoustic guitar from like a church garage sale. So yeah.
So this is your first electric guitar that you own. And for those who don't know, what is an Amin? What is the signification of this in your life?
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. It's, as far as I know, it's not like an official celebrate. It's just like our way of keeping up with bar mitzvahs, or like our own little sort of like rite of passage of like you finish the Quran and then your parents throw you a party. I think I also technically had a Bismillah, which is when you start reading. And yeah, in my case, yeah, you literally spend years reading, the whole thing, and then when it's done, you have the Amin. So.
And at the end, you got an electric guitar.
I got an electric guitar, so it was all worth it.
There's something that, I feel like even the definition of punk is so nebulous. But I feel like that is so punk. That is
I think it is.
Like, get through that, get through the journey and complete recitation. You get electric guitar.
You get the guitar.
And so this has been a part of your life from very early age.
Music specifically. It's always been a part of me. So definitely my first love.
So speaking of music, I listened to your first episode of your podcast where you're talking about. It was very good, and you mentioned that story about the Amin. When you got the guitar.
So you already knew it. Shoot, I'm just repeating myself now.
Well, that was good. But tell us a little bit about the Taqwa course and how that influenced you, and how you got into your own punk Muslim band.
Yeah. So I think I was almost a high school dropout, definitely a college dropout. And one of my attempts at getting back to school, I ran into an old friend of mine who gave me this book by Michael Knight, Taqwa Course. And it was definitely like very influential as like a young adult, typical confused various identities and things. And, it kind of, just for anybody who hasn't read it, it's like a fictional story about a group of sort of like fringe Muslim misfit kids and they kind of like make their own community forged through punk rock and stuff. And I'd never really read anything like it. It's been described in many different ways as like a Catcher in the Rye type thing for young Muslims or whatever. And yeah, we kind of like, we were already thinking of starting a band, and, this book definitely like influenced us to also, in addition to the other stuff we were writing, like think about our various identity. Music obviously is like a expression of yourself and stuff, and like what's going on in the world around you. And this is like 2003, 2004, so very like post 9/11. And yeah, we just kind of started this band, and it was also the early days of the internet. Not the early in the sense of like social media, like MySpace is where we put out our first songs, and that's kind of like where we started to connect with other folks around the country and around the world who, either through the book or just through our music, started to kind of like make our own little community of misfits. And in a way, it kind of became this thing where the book sort of like it felt like it was sort of a melding of the fiction and the nonfiction. Like this movement, not movement, even just like community was created. And from there, we kind of just like met all these people, and yeah, it definitely like, was influential in, I think, the early history of the band. It also became a little bit difficult to be, no musician wants to be stuck in a label. So it became this very, it was also because of the post 9/11 stuff. It was a very like white centric media landscape. So the way that we were always described was, Muslim punk band, when, that's not all that we were by any means. We always had non-Muslim members in the band. But also like always just, in opposition to something or clash of civilizations narrative type stuff. So we struggled with that stuff, but like we just celebrated our 20th anniversary as a band, my band, the Kominas.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
And we're not as active really anymore. All of us kind of do other musical things and other creative things now. But it's pretty cool. So many years later that, I just a few days ago, I was in New York City playing with a friend of mine, Sunny Singh, who plays in the band Red Bharat and then also does his solo stuff. He takes the poetry of Guru Nanak and stuff and makes music based on that. And we were performing at this like a racial justice type conference called Encore. Actually, your friend Omar Effendim was playing at the exact same time as we were. So it sucked. I couldn't see him. But we were, and this guy in the audience we got to talking, and it turned out that he's a really amazing guy who is kind of a prison reform advocate. The movie version of the Taqwa Course was an influential film for him while he was in prison. And so it's something that, I'm very proud to be associated with, and it's occupied like a really cool, it's a very fond, memories of that time in my life. And I'm still friends with, pretty much most people from the quote unquote scene, whatever that means, so it's a quick overview of that whole thing.
So what came first? Did Michael Muhammad Knight's book Taqwa Core come first, or did the Kominas come first and then the book?
I think he wrote it before we met him. I think he wrote it it was published, I think, in 2003, which is around the time we were starting the band anyway. So I don't, definitely the band, I think, existed in some idea in Basim's mind before the book. But, it was all the same. It was all within a year or two of each other that we all became friends and stuff. So,
So it was more of a divergent development where sort of at the same time the tides were lifting and different folks were getting activated.
And then we all kind of found each other, and
So and I think that's really striking because the book describes a Muslim punk scene which at the time didn't exist, and that punk scene came out. I don't want to say directly in response to, but
I think in the history, there are maybe not in name in that way, but there were definitely folks that played in the UK. There's a band Alien Culture. There was the band Fundamental from the 90s. And I'm sure we weren't the first people that it just kind of got a name, I suppose. So.
Yeah, that's cool. I actually never read the book, but I listened to the audio book a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's my voice actually doing the audio book.
So that's how I first recognized your name from that audio book. So that was great.
Yeah, and it started my voiceover career. So thank you, Mike Knight.
Nice.
Shout out to Mike.
And I was looking up online. So there's actually two films, right? One is the Taqwa Chorus, which is
one is a feature film, that's right, version of the book, and then one is actually a documentary. And then you were part of the documentary, right? That's right. And also technically in the feature film, our music is kind of all over it, and that's where the feature film is sort of a melding of the two worlds, where then the band that they're talking about in the feature is actually the Kominas, which is a real band. So it's kind of
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Kind of wild and crazy.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think was the overall impact of the book on Muslim culture today? Where do you see that influence manifesting? Because I want to say, at least in the mainstream stuff that I have been exposed to, We Are Lady Parts comes to mind. And I remember watching an interview with We Are Lady Parts director Nadia Mansour, and she's wearing a Kominas band t-shirt.
Yeah. So she definitely, I think Basim and her were in touch while she was writing the show. They have a song in there that's pretty much a direct reference to one of our songs. It's really cool that it's cool to be part of something that has had an impact, that you can meet people pretty much anywhere that, have either heard of it or had some kind of like influenced them in some way. I think it's pretty cool. It's at the end of the day, as artists, in whatever medium, like we just want to know that we left some kind of a legacy and impact and stuff. And like, I'm really lucky to have, been able to do that in many, many ways now. But specifically with that project.
Yeah, I think like TV, media, movies, things that, nowadays it's like to make it is to have your show on one of the big streaming platforms. So I know, when We Are Lady Parts.
What is making it even mean, man? Like, yeah, like, when we were with the early history of I think about this stuff a lot. Like, it was a lot of, and I think why maybe it was more of a frustrating time when it should have. Your 20s are regardless, but just thinking like, no, I got to make it, got to be the biggest band in the world, and the band's got to be. And look, I've always basically just since I barely graduated high school, like this is pretty much all I do. I don't have like a backup plan. I did for a little while, but yeah, but I do feel like maybe. Financially, no, I guess I haven't really made it, but like I've done the stuff I always wanted to do, so like to me, what else is there? So,
yeah, the impact is there for sure. I don't know if I ever told you this story, but there was one Komina show that I attended, and I say that in quotation marks because I went to this Komina show and there were a couple openers, listening to the openers, one like really atmospheric rock, like really beautiful kind of explosions in the sky type set. After that, I walk out to my car before the Komina set, and I see that my car had been broken into. There's glass everywhere. The homie's backpack was stolen. And so that moment we're like, do we handle this? What do we do? I have to stay by the car. So I missed the entire show. And we had another homie that was in the show, and we're like, we're not going to tell him, let him enjoy his time. We'll tell him afterwards.
Which show was it?
This was in San Francisco a number of years ago.
Oh boy, was it in the Mission?
I think it was in the Mission. I remember one of the openers.
Submission? 2009?
No, I would have remembered Submission. I think it was a little bit more recently than that.
Oh, yes. I remember, and the other band was Commissure. So this probably was 2015, the Rock Therapy Tour. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I think that was 2015. So so your car got broken into and you missed the whole show?
I caught every other act of the entire show. I just missed that little bit. Because the car got broken into, but I'm sure it was great, and that's the only Komina show I've been able to catch.
The one that you did. Okay, well, who knows? It's very unlikely that there'll be one anytime soon. So,
you guys are not going to do a 20th anniversary tour?
No, I don't see us doing a tour. We're all still friends and stuff. We may. We might do something later this year, but it's hard. Like I'm in Boston. Boston is in Toronto. He has a son now, and the other two, actually, Sonny and Karna, they have another project called Baba. It's a phenomenal band. So we're all doing music.
I'll be headed to Toronto in a little bit. I'd love to connect with Boston, actually.
Oh yeah. I'll look you guys up. Sure.
So that's phenomenal, and so. Like Muslim punk and like where it's come over the years. I loved We Are Lady Parts season 1. And speaking of TV.
Oh, and also before we finish this whole thing, there was a band, the Muslims, and when they first came out, we very probably assumed that like, oh yeah, they must be, fans of it. They didn't know who the hell we were. They couldn't care less. And that's cool. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why none of this stuff like matters in the end, that it's like, they just like made their own thing. They're literally called the Muslims, and they're insane and like an absolutely incredible band. So,
we'd love to play a little bit of one of your songs in this podcast. And I think I'm going to pick Disco Uncle, if it's all right with you.
Yeah, man, for sure. Episode. It's funny, that one I'm actually not on that recording because at the time I was getting sober and I was in rehab and stuff. But it's come to be probably one of my favorite songs that the band ever wrote. So, and the video is starring my dad, which is the best part.
Okay, there we go. And this is like honestly, it's amazing to hear that as an immigrant brown kid in America. It's incredible and such a blessing to have parents that support a creative journey to the point of
Oh
being
yeah, I mean, I can't say they weren't worried, but now they're like literally. I just canceled. I was supposed to be to go to my cousin's wedding, and I'm going to be going on tour with my favorite band this summer. And I just was and it's my dad's side of the family, and I just was like, "Hey, listen," and he's like, "Dude, what are you kidding? Go on the tour, like, go do that."
Hey, halal foodies. Let me put Charminar Restaurant on your radar. It's the kind of Indian food that really stays with you. Their goat biryani is slow cooked, super fragrant, and the meat just melts in your mouth. And don't skip their rich halim. Everything's made with hand-slaughtered halal meat. Whether you're dining in, ordering out, or catering something special, Charminar brings that satisfying, home-style Hyderabadi cooking every time. Seriously, go check Charminar Restaurant out in Sunnyvale or in Fremont. You'll thank me later. So speaking of your work, some of your more recent work, specifically in TV, has been on Deli Boys. And I feel like currently we're in a moment, and, we had a moment in season 2 where we were looking at, Rami season 3 was out at that time. Miss Marvel.
Oh my God, what a show.
Moon Knight, Mo season 1. So we had a moment there and we talked about that. I feel like there's another great moment at this current time where we see Muslim matchmaking, where the reality TV show came out, Deli Boys, Moammer season 2, and then Rami's new show, Number One Happy Family USA.
Yeah, I've only seen the first episode, but it's really good.
Yeah, very great writing on that show. Out of all of these, I mean, I don't want to be biased when I say this, but like Deli Boys was probably my favorite for a number of reasons. I just feel like Raj's character, his fashion, his sort of like laissez-faire attitude of going through life. I'm like, yeah, that's one of my favorite selves. I think
for me, the cool part about it is like you said, it is part of this, slate of new whatever shows, but in a way it represents kind of the actualization or whatever of all of the stuff we've been trying to do this whole time. And it's just, at the end of the day, it's like a cool show that's incidentally has bits and pieces of different things, but it's kind of like, it's just a show that can exist, and that's the kind of thing that I think, at least I always didn't even know that I wanted when I was younger, and it's kind of like the missing link, So
I'm curious so I really want to sort of weave these Muslim narratives through some of the shows that we discussed. I think one of the first ones on the scene in most recent history was Rami, and that came and made a huge splash because the Muslim identity and the sort of Islamic path was critical to Rami's story, and it was really central to Rami's story. All of season 1 is like, hey, I'm struggling, but I'm working on it. And then we go from that into Mo's show, Moammer. The Islam is part of it, but there's a much stronger emphasis on his Philistini identity. And then we go to We Are Lady Parts, and Islam is a big part of it. It's very much about punk. It's very much about music, but you can't ignore the fact that a hijabi is leading this this all-female Muslim band that also has a niqabi manager. So a lot of that identity and Islamic narrative also comes into there, whether it's something that's counterculture, whether it's something that's questioning different aspects of how we experience Islam as Muslims in the West. And then, so now we've come to something like Deli Boys, where there are definitely scenes where they're all hanging out, talking about, moving massive amounts of cocaine. And in the background on the wall is a fluorescent neon light that says halal. And that was just one of my favorite scenes because I think it really speaks to where we are in TV. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are, especially being in the arts for the last few decades, on Muslim representation, on what it means to be a Muslim on screen and what it means to tell your story. Can you tell your story without being sort of hyper-focused on the Islamic and Muslim part of it? What does that look like?
I guess yes. I mean, you kind of answered it in the question. Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess like it for me, uh, since I have been in whatever the the scenes and stuff that I've been in since like 2003 or 4, I've definitely seen a shift in the, I guess, the willingness of content creators in terms of, so the special part about Deli Boys, other than the end product, the show, right, was like the experience of making the show too. Which now for me, look, I've actually technically, I mean, I've been an actor for a long time. I've been doing kind of like more, I guess, professional projects, maybe only the last 3 or 4 years. And it was definitely, but I have been on sets, where like, so I'll give you another example. So, my other kind of big thing that came out in the past year was this movie on Netflix called Aftermath, which is, it's kind of a silly bro-y action comedy about, and it does, the thing is, so it centers one of the, Riz has that like Riz test for movies or whatever. So the film is about terrorism, but it's U.S. Marines who are the terrorists and have taken a bunch of hostages on the Tobin Bridge in Boston. And I'm not one of them. And I'm actually this like ethnically ambiguous character named Ozzy. Now, I'm actually very good friends with the writer and the director. They're both great guys. But the writer, he had envisioned Ozzy literally being short for Osama. Like that was the name of the character.
Wow.
So
very intentional.
Yeah, and honestly, like in his mind and in the world that he's coming from, even in whenever he started to write it, like that was like a big thing, right? To be like, hey, there's this guy who actually kind of turns out to be an action hero. And then there's a little dialogue between him and the main character is played by Dylan Sprouse from Zack and Cody and stuff. And also Deachin from Severance is in the show. And there's this whole scene where, and this is the thing I was dreading. So this is the first real movie I ever booked with lines. And in 2021, when I got the part, I was like over the moon that I finally booked something, because it had been years. But there's just this one thing, and I'm just like, and still at that point, like because I hadn't been in that part of the scene that you would think that someone like me with a background of like being in Kominas and stuff would be a little more forceful. But dude, like still, I just was like, I don't know if I can, I talked to my agent about it and stuff. But then when I got to set the very first day, the director comes up to me. He's like, hey, listen, you're like my favorite character in this whole movie. We're taking that out because I think I don't want to do that. And that was pretty cool. Like for him to just, without me even having the discussion, and his name is Patrick Lucier. He's kind of like a pretty well-known horror thriller guy. He was the editor for like Wes Craven's Scream series and Halloween H2O. So he's a pretty kind of prolific guy. But so I guess what I'm trying to say is in terms of the question that you asked, like we have like made it pretty far and not just, I think Muslims, I think like various, you could insert any kind of underrepresented community in there because like now it's not just that scenario where, okay, I'm the one character that like has to hold all these things, in me or whatever. It's actually, then you go to a set like Deli Boys where it's just, there's Pakistani food at the catering, there's like, honestly, the white costume designers know more about sherwanis and things than I even do. And like, I have to like call my mom, so it's like,
Zamane badal gaye.
Yeah. And it was like, it was just a very special, the whole show, set and community thing to be a part of.
And there's a lot of people on that cast who I love the work that they've done and other things as well.
Yeah.
What was it like working with a cast like this?
Dude,
and had you worked with them before? What was the dynamic like?
It was most of them, a lot of them are people that I grew up watching, whether it's Brian George or Iqbal Theba or more recently Purna, and to get to be like, am I going to get to work with them? Are you crazy? Are you kidding me right now? And even the first day when I learned that Azhar Usman was going to be in my gang, he was the first comedian I ever saw, you know? And
we're talking from Allah Made Me Funny days.
Yeah, when he was the very first stand-up show I ever went to was put on by the Pakistani Association of Greater Boston at MIT, and I will never forget his like spread by the sword routine. And yeah, man, that was like a huge deal. And yeah, and then all the cameos of people like, I don't know, Chris Elliott and Guillermo from Half Baked and all these people, and like, and everybody's just there because they like want to, and there's no like ego stuff. Like everybody's just trying to like make each other better, you know, and the people are just like hanging with the background folks, and there's not partitions in the way that like you're used to on sets and stuff. And, you know, and people are coming in on their days off. This is something that I think a lot of the cast has talked about in interviews, like voluntarily just to hang because it's like so fun.
It's a family affair.
Yeah.
So where did the idea originate? Whose idea is it? How did it develop from the very early days? I'm curious to know how a story like this develops.
Deli Boys, I mean, you'd have to talk to Abdullah more, but I mean, Abdullah Saeed is my oldest friend in the world. I definitely read one of the first drafts of this show years and years ago. And it's a result of, you know, Abdullah has had kind of a pretty prolific career himself, and you know, whether it's at Vice or at MTV Desi before that, or his band also Sunny Ali.
MTV Desi.
MTV had a channel called MTV Desi. Abdullah was a reporter there. Abdullah was he was the first person I also made music with as a kid. Abdullah's playing drums on Disco Uncle, by the way. So he was in Kominas for an album, and yeah, so like it just was a result of the kind of show that he wanted to write. I don't want to speak for him, but just like a very joke forward kind, you know, that's like the main thing is the jokes. And he wrote it as a spec script to try to get a staff writing job. And ironically then, you know, that it kind of like they tried to shop it around and get it sold. And it, you know, just like everything else, it was like really hard to, sell it. It was hard to, once it was sold, they made a pilot and then the strike happened. And then like, there were so many opportunities for it to like get canceled or to not happen. So it's really, and Abdullah specifically is he's probably one of my most inspiring, if not the most inspiring friend that I have, man, like in terms of his like perseverance, but also he was always the one who was just doing his own thing. He didn't care, you know, about anybody. Yeah, he was the one that always like gave me cool music to listen to, or, you know, or like the one that encouraged me to kind of get my shit together when things were, you know, not going that great, or the one who was just very like, bro, just like, you're all right. Like, just keep going, you know?
That's incredible. I know Abdullah has done a lot of work in a lot of different parts of the industry, and he's done like shows, and he's done one of my favorite things that he has is he had a little podcast where he's like, let's listen to a few different songs. And yes, this is what I think about it.
It's a fantastic show, Abdullah's radio show.
Right. And I know you mentioned Fundamental earlier. There's the Josh Shaitan song, which I discovered from there, and it's Karachi death cult mix, which fascinated me.
Yeah.
And so, you know, just to see that range of music and to get a sense of sort of like the music you were listening to growing up as well. It's, you know, it's this sort of like this meshing of identities. And so myself, I'm an immigrant to this country. So there's a whole big chunk of my life that I lived elsewhere. And so the juxtaposition, I think, is really interesting when I look at it, and I'm a student of culture. Mm-hmm. So it's fascinating to me to see something like Deli Boys, where the story has Muslims, has Pakistanis, you know, has a person who was once Minister of Energy in Pakistan. But that narrative isn't central to the story like it is in a lot of other shows that we talked about. They just happen to be in that context.
Yeah. That's something actually that you share with Abdullah, because he's technically an immigrant from Thailand. So he spent, you know, a lot of his young life there. And, you know, so he often talks about observing America through that similar lens.
Right. So I think like growing up, for example, if I think about, similar sort of TV shows or movies, those kinds of stories were always there growing up. I mean, Scarface really changed my life and made me who I am today. You know what I mean? But looking at these movies, it was always through this lens of the other. It was always through, a white lens, or, whether it's the directors or the actors. It was from that sort of dominant American narrative. And now we get to explore it through a Desi lens, where it was written and created by Desi. And it felt authentic. None of it felt forced. Now, for example, when we talked to Rizwan Manji a couple of seasons ago, he talks about Uncle Charlie's War, which
Charlie
was one of
Wilson's
the.
War?
That's the one.
Yeah.
Charlie Wilson's War. And he talks about how there's a scene where someone's reading the Quran and the Quran's upside down. There's just no like cultural competency or context. But while watching Deli Boys, I'm like, it's sort of like it was seamless.
Dude, and on Deli Boys, there's a shadi scene where there was a whole discussion about drinking milk, doodh pilai, and whether that would be appropriate. And, so it's that level of like, nuance and stuff. So, yeah.
So the recent disruption to our business by the fucking FBI has had a catastrophic effect on our bottom line. We are currently in the red, blood red. Yes, Ali, thank you so much for letting us use your house. It's very nice.
My wife has great taste. What the fuck is happening? Without ABC Delis, we have no distribution system.
Correct. We are trying to get a new distribution system up and running.
And how long will that take?
We are in the process of finding the best.
Blah, blah, blah. Look, this organization is on the path to total destruction. Baba pissed away millions on those golf courses and depleted all our cash.
Baba was using those golf courses to get into the international market. Very smart move in the long run.
In the long run. But in the short run, where we live, the Peruvians want their 10 mil. We are in a fucking hole, and we can't even earn our own bread and butter.
This is just a temporary setback.
Tell that to the Peruvians when they're slitting our throats.
Hey, Sabar, whatever you think, panicking is not going to get us anywhere. What we need is a plan and a leader. Me, I'm the obvious choice.
I don't think so. No, I think we need to elect a new leader. Me. I call for a vote to elect the new CEO of Darko.
Vote? Come on, watch this. All in favor of a vote. Fuck me.
That's epic. Really relatable. I love that stuff. I think that's probably one of the reasons why I enjoyed that show so much. And that was filmed where? In Chicago?
Yes.
So I want to ask you something about Chicago.
Please do.
I love going to Chicago, and one of the main reasons is the food. For those who may or may not know, Chicago is home to Devon Avenue, which has its own Diwanas, Diwan and Devon.
Mm-hmm.
Amongst them is me, and honestly, the best Nahari that I've had was on Devon. And there's a whole history of Nahari on that street. It's really fascinating. But I would love to know from you where the best Nahari in Chicago can be found.
So unfortunately, I've only had it in one place. So I'm gonna shout out Ali's, and that's where we would go. The cast would my first week on set. That's where I met Asif. I met Iqbal. The first day I met Iqbal, he was next to me, just cleaning off a plate of Nahari, wearing one of his epic scarves. That dude is like who I want to be when I grow up. Like, he's such a smooth. I don't know what his skincare routine is, but so Ali's Nahari has a very special place in my heart. I guess that's the one I'll shout out.
That's incredible, and shout out to Ali, who himself has such a fascinating story, because he started off as the chef at Sabri Nahari.
Right.
And I remember watching a news story from probably over a decade ago where he's, it's behind the scenes and he's making charga in the kitchen. And something happened. I don't know exactly what happened. If anyone that's listening knows what exactly caused this to happen, but Ali left Sabri and just down the street opened his own spot. And he took his recipes with him.
That's how most of these restaurants open up, man. The chef from a popular place says, "Hey, you know what? I can do this better myself. Make more money."
Just like bands, dude.
just like masjids. Same thing with masjids. The board members get mad, they split up and start their own one.
It's exactly, and it's interesting to see this in the restaurant industry because I've seen this in a lot of different restaurants. I won't name any names, but there's a lot of these origin stories of halal restaurants that are born out of spite and resentment. Mm-hmm. We can have a whole episode on this show about spites and spices. That's really good. So he took his recipes over to Ali's and became really like a celebrity at this point. To when the last time I was having dinner there, he's out and about going to every table talking. I got to have a picture with Ali while I'm having Ali's Nelly Nahari, and I think that's probably where my life peaked. Like that was my favorite celebrity that I've ever met is Ali of Ali's, Nahari. And so there's a lot of other interesting stories about Devon that are somewhat Nahari related and others that are not at all that make that very
somewhat Nahari related after the Nahari era.
After post Nahari. It's really interesting because that, like, as far as Muslim culture in America goes, like, I think Devon should always be mentioned. There was a time where, actually there were multiple times where Salman Khan was spotted at Sabri Nahari, and there was one time where he was slapped right outside of Sabri Nahari, and that made it big in the news at the time. A lot of stuff happens on that street. There was a dead body that was found on top of Tahura Sweets a number of years ago. So anyways, that's a story we're going to explore in the next episode of the show, but it just sort of made me think about Deli Boys and how, it's not too far-fetched to imagine on Devon that there's some sort of like undercover low-key.
It's literally, it happened in Chicago in 2017. There's a story about, I'm pretty sure, Pakistani drug smuggling family, like in pizza boxes. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, and none of us even knew until someone looked it up or whatever. And then it was like, oh my God, this is actually a thing.
Pizza boxes, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was like a pizza delivery scam or something.
I think your guys' shows was a pretty good idea, putting in the HR. Nobody can smell that. I don't think any dogs would be able to smell that either.
Yeah, hopefully, we've influenced some kids. No, I'm kidding.
All of a sudden, they're showing up with big boxes of HR. That I didn't know about that story. I'm Googling 2017 pizza boxes Muslim drugs.
What a Google. I feel like
drugs?
Chicago,
come on, man.
Pakistani cocaine.
Pakistani cocaine. You heard it here first.
DEA, here it is. DEA-led pursuit of Pakistani drug lord. Here. Drug kingpin Shahbaz Khan. Check this shit out. Hold on.
Oh my God.
I don't know if this is Chicago. Is this Chicago?
We need to get Shahbaz on the show.
Shahbaz.
Anyway, I'm putting this in here. That is one.
19 people charged in connection with a cocaine ring operating out of pizza restaurants.
Yeah, it wasn't crazy. All right, I knew it.
That's incredible.
It's probably halal pizza too.
Yeah, they're gonna think I'm a Salah pizza.
Like the pizza has to be halal. The heroin hidden in the boxes are completely separate story. That's incredible. We're definitely going to be looking into this story and hopefully can get someone involved. He was 70. He pled guilty to one count of conspiring to import 1 kilo or more of heroin into the U.S.
Can you believe that?
At 70.
Yeah.
We are not going to sell pork, but we are going to sell heroin.
That halal haram ratio. Chicago, man. Devon is fascinating. I can't wait to unravel that story in the next episode.
Actually, I got to play a concert there on Devon Street for this is like last summer, which was really fun. So to do that again.
Oh, that's and you've traveled across the U.S. You've traveled across the world with your work.
Yeah.
What's the best Nahari you had in the whole world?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, I'm gonna have to say in Pakistan. I mean, like, well, in Pakistan, yeah, I would have to say this place in so my khala, probably she and my late uncle, they used to have really good nahari. And then there's a place that I used to go with this when I was living in Pakistan in 2008. I was playing music with unfortunately this guy who passed as well, Farhad Humayun, in this band Overload. He would take me to Mohammedi Nahari, which was like the super famous one. So that was also because they had Nahari, and then they also had they would bring you like a sweet naan afterwards. It's kind of like a dessert. Wow. So just carbs. You eat a bunch of fucking naan, use Nahari, and then if you want some more carbs, you just have like a sweet naan after that.
Very cool. So how long did you live in Pakistan for?
I lived in Pakistan for just about 1 year, going since I was a kid, but I went. I lived there for just about 11.
And you
11
lived
months.
you lived in Karachi or a different?
I lived in Lahore.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Mm-hmm. I visited Lahore once in 2012.
Wow!
My wife's family's from there.
Okay.
And we stayed for a month in.
That's a good amount of time.
Yeah, in my in-laws used to have a house in Defense in Lahore.
Yep.
And I was actually very, very surprised because, I'm American-born Desi and, influenced by U.S. media and all that. So when on my father's side, he came from Karachi. So I just have memories as a kid from there, which was in not a very good area of Karachi. Mm-hmm. So when I went to 2012 to Lahore, which I'd never been before, I was very, very surprised at how clean it was, and how and they used to pick up the garbage 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, in that area is a lot of military and government people, so they got to make sure that it's well kept. But I was very pleasantly surprised. All the roads and the shopping malls and the restaurants, very, very nice, and I was impressed. I just wanted to go back for a minute on how about 9/11 real quick. And how it
you gotta drop it in, man. Three brown guys gotta talk about 9/11.
But obviously it influenced I think almost everybody who's a Muslim, whether they're practicing or not. And I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but in some of the interviews I've heard of you, you mentioned that you were not obviously a very practicing Muslim at the time. And but did you ever feel like after 9/11 happened that maybe a few years later, since you're in this field of media, did you ever feel the need that I have to do some kind of defense? I have to defend Islam or Muslims or Pakistanis. Did you ever have that feeling?
Yeah, man. Of course. And that still depends on what circles you run in. But yeah, I think so. I think for sure. Yeah, I would say even before. Because it's the weird thing of not wanting to critique it in front of non-Muslims, but then when you're with Muslims, being like, here's the real deal. Here's what I really feel. Yeah. So mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think hopefully. Not that it's gone away, but it's just things have become more complicated. So in terms of narratives and stuff. And so like a show like Deli Boys or something where you don't have to necessarily just like explain stuff. And I think people maybe get it more that, there's just like, there's not like one way to define and stuff,
You have a podcast, King of the World.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if you can give a little bit of like...
It's a limited series. So, yeah. I have another one, actually. I'm doing... I will be presenting at Tribeca next week. We got into the Tribeca Creators Market. It's a podcast called Karachi Nights. It's about the nightclub scene in Pakistan before Zia, and kind of the groovy psychedelic rock bands from that era. Here, I'll send you a little blurb about it. If you want to listen to it, this is private, so don't pass this along to anybody, but if you want to hear the first episode, you can check that out. But yeah, so I'm really excited about that one. It's something I've been working on in one way or another for like 15, 20 years. Yeah, just the idea of like doing something on this story. So, yeah, King of the World. Yeah, it was a one season kind of limited series. Was my first podcast experience, and it's it did. Very, very lucky to have been able to do that.
And it was very, very well produced as well, and it tells a story of your life, but also just tells a story of this post 9/11 world, of navigating through it. Could you tell us a little bit about just like the background of that limited series and why is it relevant? Why should folks go and check it out?
Sure. Yeah, it's essentially like a coming of age story narrated by me in first person. As you said, like pretty well produced. So it's not an interview based in the way that the three of us are doing now. It's more of like narrative, audio documentary style, heavy sound design. And yeah, it just thematically deals with the years, the 20 years kind of, it came out on the 20th anniversary of 9/11. So kind of the, become it, it essentially starts, as when I'm a senior in high school, and which is when, it all happened. And then from there, each episode deals with different things like, some of the stuff we've talked about, like Muslims in the media or mental health, like the final episode, one of my favorites, I talked to a Muslim therapist. My parents and family are kind of recurring voices in the show. And I get to talk to, Dominic Raines from the Thaqwa Corps and stuff. And in the media episode, for example, I talked to Bashir Ahmed, who was, he founded Pakistan's MMA league after being a soldier in Iraq. Like that's kind of how he was kind of like me, a bit of a fuck up in high school and stuff. And he got himself into the military, and then he gets to Iraq. He's like, wait a minute, I'm just like shooting at people that look exactly like me. This is not the vibe. So I was very fortunate to talk to some pretty incredible people on the series. And yeah, the cool thing about that is, it became curriculum in my old high school. There's various schools that have integrated into their, I get to go give talks and stuff about it. And
very cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, it's called King of the World. Just Google King of the World podcast.
Yeah, I just listened to the first episode last night, so it was very good.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to listening to the rest of it.
But for those of us that saw ourselves as even remotely Muslim, 9/11 did more than we could have ever imagined. Whether we liked it or not, that was the day we all became part of the Muslim world, or the American Muslim community, for better or for worse. And we really didn't get to choose what the hell that even meant. From Rafelion Media, I'm Shahjehan Khan, and this is King of the World, a historical, cultural, and personal look back at the 20 years since 9/11.
So you have your fingers in a lot of different pies, and I think that's really fascinating.
Man. It's just get bored. Gotta keep moving.
I mean, your career has been the farthest thing from boring. One of the things that really tickled me when I saw that it came out is that you are the villainous Quan Chi in Mortal Kombat.
That's right. I am the face of Quan Chi in Mortal Kombat. And that's actually, it's funny you mentioned that. So I was recently invited to a kind of a smaller high school for kids that have had some issues and they wanted to talk about racism and Islamophobia, but all the kids wanted to talk about was Mortal Kombat. So we just talked about that for 45 minutes.
That's really epic. And I it's like, again, I feel like we're coming to this almost sort of moment, because I saw that Maz Ali down in LA. He has a character in Call of Duty Warzone.
Yeah. Maz is an OG.
So it's really, I mean, I feel like in this moment in time, I'm really excited because I get to see a lot of Muslims on TV, now in video games, in movies, on Netflix. What are your reflections on that in this moment, having been in the culture for some decades now? And what do you think is next for the culture?
Oh, man, I got to speak on behalf of the culture. No, I'm kidding.
The entire culture.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, I think I have no idea what to expect. I mean, just in terms of like I just hope I can keep barely making a living doing this stuff. That'd be nice. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I don't see, I just see whatever your definition of the culture is, like us at the forefront of the new cool shit that's happening, man. I mean, I think like whether it's like, isn't there like a whole streaming service that just started Watermelon Pictures? Just for like quote unquote our kinds of stories, or the kinds that like people don't want to have on the other networks or whatever. I think we're just gonna keep making stuff, and it's gonna like blow everybody away. Obviously, we're hoping for a second season of Deli Boys. We don't know yet, but and I mean, for me, like I'm doing something not different, but totally different for me this year. I'm actually going to go on the road with one of my favorite rock bands from Boston. I'm going to be touring the U.S. It'll be the largest single tour I've ever done in a row. It's kind of a full circle moment for me to be asked to play with them. I'm just excited I'm excited to kind of maybe be a bit of an elder in this, and to like be wowed and impressed, and like have people like do stuff that I never thought possible, because it's very strange even to be in this position where people maybe look to me for my opinions, or like advice, because it really wasn't that long ago, man, that I was like emailing people asking to talk to them and like trying to like find my way in everything. So
nice. Just a quick question.
Yeah.
I know you do a lot of podcasts and obviously music, and you're doing acting and voice acting.
While it's still a career, yes, I'm doing voice acting.
Do you do any writing yourselves in terms of like writing script or screenplay?
I have here and there dabbled, not as much. I am trying to turn, a friend of mine and I are trying to think about how we might be able to make a series out of King of the World, out of the podcast. We've been in talks here and there. There's not too much movement on that yet. It's something in the back of my mind that I did. So I did script with the help of the team at the company I was working at. Like, I scripted most of the narrative in that show. It is something that I do want to do, but I kind of enjoy being a performer. Mm-hmm. I like playing in other people's bands. I like collaborating with people. I like sort of just being an actor and being told what to do and what my lines are and stuff. And like, I used to be a little bit insecure about that to be like, I should be. And like you said, I'm lucky to have done a lot of things, but maybe someday I will write more, or maybe think of directing. But for now, like I still consider myself even though I'm turning 42 this year, I still feel kind of like at the beginning of the next phase of whatever my next phase is.
You're still
it's
young.
not that I took a screenwriting course back in the day, which I dropped out of. So I definitely, there are ideas floating around, but at the same time, I'm lucky enough to know so many talented people to collaborate with folks. So I feel the point I'm trying to make is that I actually feel very creatively fulfilled in what I do. And I don't feel like I'm lacking. And I feel like maybe at some point, if things slow down or I there's some other need that I have to like make something in that way that I own fully like that, then yeah, I could see myself doing it. But I'm so lucky to have so many different avenues that, if one thing isn't happening, I just go to something else. And so.
Yeah, great. That's great. No, I was just gonna suggest that, like based on your own life story, you can probably write a series out of that or make it.
Yeah, I'll just chat GPT this this whole podcast interview and see what happens.
Just use AI to write everything. Yeah, they can make movies now. Just tell the AI to make a movie
right?
based on your story. It'll probably make it animation.
Yeah, well, thank you for ending the podcast on this note that I'm no longer needed as an actor. No, I'm kidding. We'll see. I might write something down the line.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Artistic Foodies. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts.
Be sure to find us on Facebook and Instagram to stay tuned for more episodes as well as bonus content. You can also have access to all of our episodes at theartisticfoodies.com.
This podcast has been brought to you by HalalFest Incorporated and GAMA, Gathering All Muslim Artists.